What is the kindest thing you've done or seen? I'm epileptic. Once, during a school assembly, I had a seizure. It was pretty bad. Too. When I woke up, the first people I saw were my English teacher. And she was smiling and telling me it would be okay, and my health teacher, who was apparently the first person to run and get me help. I was in a super emotional state after the seizure, and I began to cry and say I'm sorry. I was hushed by my teacher and helped down the bleachers by them. My health teacher, my English teacher, my choir director and the school counselor all stayed by me until I got into the ambulance. My literature teacher also ended up sending me a very nice video of her and all of her family wishing me well. Another seizure I had, I was at a con, standing in line to get David Tennant's autograph. I was so excited that I had a seizure, and after I woke up I was wheeled back behind a curtain that was behind the booth. A moment later, David Tennant's agent came up to me and asked me what color pen I wanted. I was confused, but I said black. After he said that, he explained that David wanted to come back and make sure I was okay, which he did. The first thing he said to me was, "What are you doing falling down on me?" And he walked over and we had a full conversation. He asked my name and autographed the book I had brought for him to. I got a picture, a conversation and an autograph from David Tennant, and this was big. I'm a huge fangirl for him. All he wanted was to make sure I was okay. This is my favorite. I love David Tennant and really hoped he was as cool as he seems. Oh, he definitely was. Awesome guy. I was selling my bike when I was a teen for $30. Got a hit and set up a location. Ended up being greeted by two kids on a single bike, one on the pegs, and the kid with the bike bought his friend my bike so they could ride together. Now that is a bro right there. Love hearing stuff like this. Thanks for sharing. I was a server for a while and my coworker was pretty new. They'd send most staff home because it was late, and how it always happens, we got super busy. My coworker was struggling and got a terribly rude table. They didn't seem to understand that they weren't the only customers in the restaurant and we were understaffed. They made her cry and have a meltdown. We've all been there. So I took over the table and, after they left, put $15 on the table so she would see she got a tip from the table. I never told her I put money on the table for her, and seeing her confidence grow from that was what I was hoping for. Her response after was something like, "Wow, I must not be as terrible of a server as I thought I was. Maybe I'm getting the hang out it after all." That is seriously the nicest thing. My cold server heart is so warm right now. I absolutely love doing adopt a families during Christmas. I don't have kids of my own, but I really put a lot of thought into what to get them. These are low income families, and I always ask for ones with lots of little kids. So I try to pick things that they can get a lot of use out of. I always get loads of books, especially ones where the parents can interact with the kids. Cookbooks, puzzles, bedtime stories. I go heavy on science books and kits too, especially for girls. Always gotta get a hula hoop, one of those huge life-size dollhouse/castles you can color, and a ton of some sort of age-appropriate building blocks or Legos. I get piles of art stuff and paper, coloring books, painting sets, jewelry kits, all kinds of crafty things. I get them some sort of diary or journal if they are older, some place secret they can write their thoughts. My most favorite family of them all was single mom who'd just turned 18. Her son was 3 and she'd moved into her very first apartment. She had nothing but 2 bare mattresses on the floor, one for her and one for her son. She was working a job and was trying to save up for things for the house. Her wish list was heartbreaking. She wanted blankets for them both, a pan to cook with, and a Spider-Man toy for her son. That's it. I was single at the time supporting myself, so I only had a couple hundred to spend. I got her a complete comforter/sheet set, a pillow, and a full set of cooking pans. I found the coolest thing for her son though. It was a fitted sheet that turned your bed into a Spider-Man tent. It was awesome. And then I found a big Spider-Man stuffed toy, like 2 feet tall. I also found this huge book with over 100 full-length bedtime stories. I got the usual boring stuff. clothes for her son and a gift card for a holiday meal. But then I found it Target a clearance TV/DVD combo. It was less than $100. I knew money was tight, so I included a note in her Christmas card that she could rent her son videos from the library for free. I would have given anything to see their faces. I really hope she liked everything. I wish that it made a good Christmas for her and maybe made her first Christmas on her own a little more happy. Damn, that's so ducking sad. Like the happy sad though I may or may not have a tear. Scribbinger's tear. I broke my foot while bouldering a week into my semester abroad. I had never been out of the country before, so I was absolutely panicking. A total stranger came right over after I fell, recorded important info for the paramedics, and spent the next 10 or so minutes while waiting for the ambulance asking me questions about my studies and my research. I mentioned I was a student. He asked such thoughtful questions and was so kind and able to calm me down, even though I was absolutely freaking out. I wish I could be as chill and amazing as this guy. Not that hard. Just put the situation above yourself and be there for the person who needs you. I reached out to dozens of people my dad has known and told me stories about throughout the years. Cousins, relatives, coworkers, groomsmen, friends throughout his adult years, friends from childhood, and even from his recently deceased dad before he passed away. I asked them if they could share a memory or picture they had of him. I was overwhelmed by the responses. So many people wrote back, even people I had missed but had heard about it through the grapevine. It was so kind of those people to dig through their archives and spend the time to do that. I compiled them all into a box and gave it to him for his 60th birthday. My dad and the rest of our family all really enjoyed reading the letters and seeing long lost photographs. What a great idea with COVID-19. My mum's birthday party may be cancelled. I may do this instead. Make a PowerPoint and have a video party for her. That reminds me of an idea my cousin suggested to all the nieces and nephews on that side of the family. She asked if we would all hold up a word or a few on a paper, take a picture holding it, and send it to her. Now, I usually don't really see family unless it's Christmas and I don't like it when anyone takes pictures of me, but I thought I'd participate for once. Eventually she put the pictures in order, then put that image on a balloon to give to our grandma in these lonely times. The words were, "You're not alone. We're thinking of you three with much love. From all of the grandchildren," but in Dutch. I really appreciate her idea to help our grandma. In 6th grade, it was 2 stops away from my stop. A man was just laying on the sidewalk. Our bus was stopped for a long time. I noticed the bus driver wasn't on the bus and I looked outside and the guy was just laying there. Our bus driver is really nice, so her being the nice lady she is, she rushes out of the bus, check his pulse and calls an ambulance. The bad part was some people on my bus were talking shite saying I bet he overdosed on something, and almost after that my mom comes to pick me up. Turns out the next day our bus driver said the man from yesterday didn't overdose. He went into diabetic shock, or I think that's what she said, but she basically saved someone. That's awesome she did that. But you know, it doesn't matter if it was diabetic shock or an overdose. They still needed help, and she did it. Yee. People are cruel sometimes. I have had people say leave him. It's just a drunk, when a dude toppled over on the bus and was literally lying there like a mannequin. Also, diabetic shock smells like booze. Even if the person hasn't been drinking anything. That's why you always check and always put them into safety position. You wouldn't want a person on your conscience, even drunk, because they barfed when lying on their back. An older gentleman tried to ship an envelope to his grandson from a shipping company I worked at. The way he acted and the things he said threw up too many red flags in my head. So, against company policy, I opened the envelope after he left, and inside of it was 5 figures in cash. I called the cops and told them to get in touch with the man and try to figure out what was going on. As it turns out, someone had called the older man and said his grandson was in the hospital, and if they didn't send the money he would get a surgery that was badly needed. The older man couldn't get in touch with the grandson by phone, so he panicked and sent the money to the address they provided. We were able to stop it from happening and get the money back to him. He said it was basically his life savings. The story kind of got big and the news ran a story on it, and apparently it's a scam that happens to a lot of old people. We started this kind of club to reach out to nursing homes and try and educate people about it. And a lot of people were not aware of anything like that happening. A lot of good came from me just being nosy. A friend of mine, educated and in her 60s, fell for one of these type scams. She was embarrassed, but told everyone she could so others would learn from her mistake. I can very easily imagine mum falling for some kind of scam before we put in a home. She was pretty talkative to anyone who called because she considered it rude to just hang up. It's scary. My 86-year-old friend fell for one such scam. She's sharp as a whip, but it's not as if she heard about such scams in her day-to-day life. A computer virus told her to contact Apple, really some Indian office, to fix it. They fixed it for a somewhat reasonable sounding rate in the hundreds, yet told her she qualified for a discount that she had to manually enter on their site to deduct from their fee. They tricked her into thinking she added an extra zero to the deduction and so took out $2,000 from their account. She looked in her account and sure enough, there was an extra $2,000 there. They told her the only way to pay them back in time to not cause huge problems on their end was through gift cards. Most of you are probably already aware that on that day, it is possible to transfer money into an account that clears the first pass yet later evaporates when the bank inspects it closer. And B, any request for gift cards is a scam. She didn't know any of that since she wasn't exposed to such information. They kept up the "you screwed up, you gotta fix it" energy all the way to Walmart where she bought $2K worth in gift cards. I had the sad duty to inform her that the extra $2K deposited into her account will be gone in a few days and there was nothing she could do about it. I try to tell everyone this story since assuming they should know was how she got into that mess to begin with. I was talking to some random guy in the bar, and he said he was having surgery the next day and didn't have someone to pick him up after. I ended up driving him there, sitting with him before he went back, calling his parents when he got out, sitting with him in recovery, picking up his post-op meds, driving him home, and making sure he was okay before I left. Never saw him again. And that's okay. Edit. AWW. Thanks guys. To answer a couple questions, dude was just grabbing a bite to eat before his cute off time. His girlfriend had just broken up and moved, and his backup fell through. Guy just needed a hand. Seemed like no big deal at the time. I've been reading through the whole thread, and this is the one that really got me. It's not easy to find someone to be this person when you need it. Even if you have friends and family, that you did this for a stranger really touches me. And that you didn't become best buds afterward is nice too. Because it shows the kind of person you are to a community. You saw a need and an opportunity to be kind. And you stepped up to it. Even when it must have taken most of a day at least. And a considerable amount of responsibility on your part. I'm glad there are people like you out there. So I don't recall some of the particulars. My parents once bumped into a lady while they were traveling. Her house had just burned down. Her husband had died or was unavailable for some reason. No family or friends locally. She was outside my parents' hotel bawling, standing around her car with her kids. They made it out with the clothes they had on. Kids had no shoes. She was in a nightgown and wasn't sure what she was going to do for several days until she could contact distant people and get help. My parents had a car full of stuff from their travels, including clothing they had bought for my nieces and nephews. They let her kids pick through for shoes and shirts. Gave them all the food in the cooler they travel with. Handed her all the traveler's checks they had on them. And then dad went inside to pay for a hotel room for a week for them. I saw a neighbor boy practicing his jump shot into some tree branches in his front yard. I had a portable hoop in the back from when I moved in that was taking up space. So I walked over and offered him the hoop for free. I only lived there for the next year or two, but it was almost non-stop basketball dribble next door after that. I saw him, his sister, parents, aunts, uncles, even a grandparent or two all take a couple shots at the hoop over time. It felt good to know his family got so much use out of it. Speaking of hoops, I lived for a while in a pretty expensive neighborhood with an apartment complex pretty close by. I had a hoop outside, and several of the kids from the complex asked if they could shoot hoops in my driveway. Neighbors got pissed, but I said sure. Even brought them snacks sometimes. They never gave me any trouble and they didn't have a hoop, so I didn't see any issues in just being kind to someone else. Ball is life, man. I grew up poor, and I remember sometimes going over to a classmate's house who had a hoop. Him and his family always said I was welcome to use it whenever I was nearby. That was the whole reason I fell in love with basketball. Small gestures like that mean a whole lot to people who have very little. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more daily Reddit videos.